Hi. Hey. Hi. It's me, your Void. And I am leaving things behind. I decided to hop on a little trend that is going around booktube at the moment and make a video like that myself, because it's actually a pretty good idea to do that, especially if you have so many ongoing series like I do. So today we will talk about series that I will be leaving behind. I read one book, maybe multiple books in the series, and I decided it's just not worth my time to deal with this anymore. This video comes in 3 categories. The first is the total DNF, the total obliteration of series that I read the book and I cannot be asked to continue reading the series. They are goners. And there is a chance that the books that I did read for this series end up on hold at a point in the future. The second category is series that I'm somewhat reluctant to continue with. I call it my pause button, because there are very different reasons to some of these series and why I'm not continuing them at the moment. There is a chance that I will continue them at some point. And then there's the third category. The third category is just pure spite. The third category is continuations in a series that I will, at some uncertain, unspecified point in the future, possibly never, continue, simply because I'm too stubborn to give up and because it's too funny to hate read these books. Call me weird if you must. I take it as a compliment. So let's start with the total DNFs that I will just never touch ever again, and I don't plan on rereading them and getting back into them, spending more money on that, or getting the book in any other kind of way. Even if you would shove that book into my face and say, you get paid to read it, I'm like, nah, won't bother. The first series on this specific list is the DNFs series by S.A. Chakraborty. I read City of Brass this year, and I was bored out of my mind because the important bits and pieces happen off page, and what's happening on the page is just incredibly boring. This is 600 pages of meh. The first 100 pages are actually kind of interesting because we get world building, we get interesting characters, and then they go on a trip across the desert, and that whole trip they build a relationship to the point where they somewhat fall in love with each other, but the falling in love with each other happens off page. It just made their relationship so incredibly unbelievable. I know they just spent 3 months on the road together, but I haven't seen any personal development between these characters, so why would I buy their romance now? And the political plot in the second storyline is also just, I don't know, I never vibed with it. So it was 100 pages in the beginning that was interesting, and then the last 100 pages, if I'm generous, were again good, but this is a 600 page book. You have to give me more than just 1/3 being good. So I will not continue with the DNFs series by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm leaving this behind in 2024. Next up, we have Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, which is the first book in the cat and mouse duet, I believe is what it is called. Everyone was raving about this book. Everyone said, oh, it's so dark, it's so shocking, it's so sexy. And I was more invested in the background murder investigation of the grandmother than anything else. Given that this is just a tiny side plot that somewhat mirrors the plot that is happening in the present, I'd say the wrong part was the interesting one. But yeah, I was just not flashed at all by this thing. Just like City of Brass, I had to listen to the audiobook to get through this. I had to listen to the audiobook to get through this. This is just very, very repetitive. It's almost 600 pages. And it could have done what it does in half of that. It's very repetitive. And I don't get the hype around this book. It's just... I also don't get the anti-hype around this book, though. A lot of people love to hate it, and I'm just chronically uninterested. It was very flat, very mid, so much so that I don't know what to say now about this. I guess we're just moving on and leave this behind in 2024. Then we come to my very unique edition of the Pariah and the Covenant of Steel. I think it's a trilogy by Anthony Ryan. This has all the hallmarks of a fantasy that I like. And yet, like, I read this for, I think, the April round of Aurelium. Again, I needed the audiobook to get through this bitch. And it's not even, it just wasn't interesting. So much so that I almost completely forgot what is actually happening in here. I know we follow a single character and he's basically telling his life story and he's just stumbling from one unfortunate event into the next, and by the end he ends up as a follower of this Jeanne d'Arc character. I think that's at least the vibes I got from this person. And he's basically her preacher, like he is preaching her gospel to the world, but he's only doing that because he kind of fell into the position to save his own ass, so now he just can't leave because then he has another problem on his ass. But he's not really a true believer, but I don't know. I legitimately don't know what's going on in this book, and I don't care. These characters are all incredibly boring. Now, why is my copy so incredibly unique? Because, do you see this? My copy somehow has ended up with a mountain range cut into the pages. Only up top. The bottom is fine. The side is fine. It's literally just up here where the pages have not been cut properly. So I guess I have a very unique copy of the book. Just that I don't want it anymore. Guess what? We're leaving this and the series behind in 2024. And the last one that I will be leaving behind in 2024 has not yet been featured on this channel ever before because it's been forever since I read it. And that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I devoured the Grisha trilogy. I actually started the Grisha verse on the wrong side of the equation. I started with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and then I found out, oh, there's a trilogy that came before it, so I got that. Read the Grisha trilogy, all 3 books in like a single weekend. It became my Bible for like a year, and then I reread them just recently, and I love these books! I was incredibly disappointed by King of Scars, and I will be rereading that to figure out if I really just hate it or if it was just hate carried over from a Brandon Sanderson book. But Ninth House! When this came out, I was incredibly excited because Leigh Bardugo and an adult book. You know, like Grisha Wars reads very YA, it is YA and it reads very YA. Sadly, Six of Crows has a similar issue. But this one was truly and properly adult. There were dark and gritty things in here. This was actually the first book that introduced me to the concept of maybe we should put trigger warnings at the front of books. I actually gave trigger warnings to a friend of mine because I read this right before her and I knew she was sensitive to certain things that happened in this book, so I told her, hey, just be careful in this specific chapter because fuck. But there was a very big issue I had with this book. I read books to enjoy myself. I read books to have fun. This book is somewhat dark academia, and it beats you over the head with the fact that it is academia. I felt so dumb reading this book for some reason, and I don't like it when I feel dumb reading a book. You can tell that Leigh Bardugo very much loves Yale, where this book is set. But oh my god, at times I felt this book is insulting the intelligence I have by claiming to be more intelligent. And I didn't vibe with the book because of that. I vibed with the characters. I am very much invested in knowing what's going on with Darlington, but honestly, knowing that Hellbent Book 2 will probably insult my intelligence just as much, and knowing that Book 2 has very mixed reviews, I don't think I want to continue with the series. And I am now learning I can like books from an author and I can dislike other books from the same author. This is the first time this has happened to me, but it has happened. And I am now finally willing to part with a Leigh Bardugo book while still enjoying some other parts of her work. just staying in last year. Moving on to the series that I hit pause on. Each of these books comes with its own reason for why I hit pause on them. I will give them when I give you the book. First up, The Princess Poison Vow by Hailey Turner. I have talked about this book before, that this is incredible world building, and at the same time it is just so stupid in a bad way. I have already talked about how much I love the characters and the character dynamics. They make this book what it is, to be honest. But it is just very, very dense, and it focuses on the wrong things for me. The problem is, after 500 pages, I fell so much in love with these characters. I want to know what's happening to them. But at the same time, I don't think I can sit through another 705 explanations of why they have to filter the water and how the very specific water filters that everyone is using work. I don't think I can sit through more explanations of how a motorcycle works. It's just, it is incredibly slow moving. It took me forever to get through this. And it's a self-published book. So this is rather expensive, which is why I hit pause on this. Because right now I don't think the book is strong enough to warrant all of the resources I would have to put into consuming book 2 and let alone book 3. So this is currently on pause. I don't plan on unholding this. Maybe one day I will continue the series. When that will be is written in the stars. Next up we have Soulkeeper by David Dalglish, which is the first book in the Keepers trilogy, I believe. This has a similar problem to Princess Poison Vow, but the other way around. This one has amazing world building. We are in a world where magic is basically non-existent until something happens and it is completely reawakened. And people just don't know how to deal with magic. They have no idea how to deal with the magic creatures that are currently reawakening. They have no idea how to deal with magic when they suddenly start developing magical powers themselves. This is incredible world building, but the characters are so uninteresting. They are so uninteresting, which is kind of stupid because we have a lawmaker, we have a spiritual leader, we have an assassin that was previously a soulless slave, basically, and now she has a soul and she became self-aware and now she's like on this revenge trip. We have a pixie that's the main character. Our antagonist has like all these super cool magical powers and he kills people basically in a Hannibal way, not by eating them but by turning them into art pieces like in the show. This world building has everything I need, and the characters just on their description should be everything I want, but they are not. It took me forever to get through this, and it's just knowing that I have to suffer through these characters and their interactions to get the cool world building aspects just turns me off so hard. So I will put this on pause. I love the world building. Maybe I get back into it at one point and suffer through the character interactions. But right now, I'm just not in the mood for that. The next two share a reason why I hit pause on them, and that is because it is incredibly hard to find the next book in the series. First up, we have The Summoner by Taran Matharu. I have book 1. I loved it. I have book 2. And I love that one as well. I've read this in a single day. But I just can't find book 3. It is ridiculous. I just can't find it. There is an omnibus edition of these 3 books now. I know that. But I have book 1 and 2 already. Why would I get the omnibus edition? I want book 3. Just give me book 3 for crying out loud. What's the problem? Just give me book 3. So reading this series is taking me forever simply because I cannot get book 3. And I have the same issue with the Shadow Campaigns by Django Wexler. This was so much fun! This is Flintlock fantasy with a bit more focus on the Flintlock and less focus on the fantasy. And I loved book 1, and then I went and looked at how do I get book 2, and it says, okay, cool, the hardcover costs like an eye and a leg. I was like, okay, maybe I wait and it gets cheaper. Nah, So I looked at the paperback, it's like, unavailable. I'm like, okay, cool. Secondhand? No. Okay, cool. Waiting. Now, I did find that book 1, 2, and 3 are available in mass market paperbacks, and at this point, because it has been literal years, at this point I am just contemplating maybe I just get the fucking mass market paperbacks and I just suffer through the tiny little unhandy books just to figure out what's going on in the series. But then again, finding book 4 and 5 is going to be another hassle. I just want to read my books! Del Rey, why are you making it so hard to find your books? Come on, like, I just want to read a good book. There is already so little flintlock fantasy in the world. Why would you gatekeep it like this? Why? So yeah, this series has given me a tiny little headache for a couple of years at this point. And I'm willing to give in, and I'm actually like, this series drove me to the point where I'm now willing to have mismatching covers, book sizes, formats, and even publishers, just to figure out what's happening. I mean, at this point I have to reread book 1 front to back anyways, because it's been so fucking long. Stop gatekeeping books, man. And then we have the special cases, where I just refuse to stop reading them out of spite, and yet I cannot find the motivation to pick up the book. First one being the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Era 1 of the Mistborn trilogy, to be exact. I read book 1. It has been ages. I did not enjoy my time with this book because it is just so bloated. Why does this have to be 900 pages? Can't we cut out like 90% of the balls we're going to and nothing is happening at? Can we maybe focus on the interesting character of Kelsier, what he is doing in the background, instead of him just showing up and saying, yeah, I did a thing? No, apparently. I have book 2. I just flat out refuse to read it. But I also don't want to unhaul it. I don't know why. If you see me reading a Brandon Sanderson, you should either run for your life, because that means the apocalypse is happening, or you should probably promptly get rid of the person that is looking like me and reads a Brandon Sanderson, because that is not me. If I'm reading a Brandon Sanderson and I enjoy myself, that is not going to be me. And the other book that follows the very same reasoning, The Sword of Truth Saga by Terry Goodkind. You know, the very thick, very non-fantasy books. These are just so bad. I love them. They are comically bad. They are the kind of bad where you stand there, point at it, and laugh out loud at what is happening. I mean, it starts with the fact that Terry Goodkind was convinced that his fantasy books are not fantasy. I love this fact so much. This is an 11-book series. All of them are this thick. I have book 2. Book 2 is the longest book on my TBR. It is almost 1,500 pages long. If you see me reading that, there's a very specific reason for it, but I will definitely enjoy my time hating reading this book. Is it going to happen anytime soon? No. But it will happen at some point. And that's it. That is all the series that I will leave in 2024. The series that I will keep on my shelf for whatever reason. And the books that I love to hate and maybe will read one day. If you made it this far into the video, leave the emoji or an X emoji, I don't know, something that is like, nah, make it a stop sign, I don't know, I can tell you what to do. I will see you in the next video. Bye.